My name is Ensiyah, and you're watching Social Chai with Ensiyah. Hi, everybody. My name's Ensiyah, and you're watching Social Chai with Ensiyah. Today's episode 2 of Social Chai. And today, the topic for Social Chai is how gender stereotypes can be harmful. Today, we'll have two guests joining us, Ali Hamza, who is a young photographer and also a med student, as well as Arisha Rehan, who is a student activist. Both of them are from Karachi. And I'm really excited. So let's have them join us.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi, what's up?
So let's have just like brief introductions of y'all. So like whoever doesn't know you can get to know you guys a little bit. So let's start with Ali.
My name is Ali Hamza. For those of you that don't know, I go by Ali Hamza on Instagram. I'm a photographer. I really like um, taking pictures of stories more than just aesthetic stuff. I'm also a med student, part-time med student. I try to balance the two things out. So yeah, that's me.
Arisha, you want to go next?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Arisha Rehan and I study at Habib University. I am currently studying social development and policy. I take specific interest in issues relating to gender and class, and occasionally I also like singing.
Okay, very, very cool, both of you. Okay, so today we're gathered here to talk about gender stereotypes. So before we start the conversation, I want to kind of define gender stereotypes, and we'll be using the terms gender stereotypes, gender norms, and gender roles interchangeably. So if you guys want to define it, or I can go ahead and define it.
I'd say a gender stereotype is something that's a characteristic which is applied to an entire group when that really may not be true, and has more negative connotations to it. Um, for example, I mean, like the most prevalent one we know is all Muslims are terrorists, when like it's really not generalizable at all. So yeah, that's what I think. I think that's a pretty basic definition of it.
Ali, would you agree with that, or do you want to add on to that?
I agree with that, but also I feel like gender stereotypes, anything that refrains you from being what you actually are or putting this stain on you for no reason. Um,
Right.
so yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, right. Okay, I agree with you both. I do believe they can be restrictive and limiting, and I do believe they're preconceived notions put on people, and they might not exactly be that. And more formal definition of it is that they're preconceived ideas whereby females and males are arbitrarily assigned characteristics and roles determined and limited by their gender. Okay, so the next question I'm going to ask you guys is that I want you all to identify some gender stereotypes that you've seen prevalent throughout your life in the societies you live in, and also add on to your experiences with gender stereotypes.
There's so many. Where do I begin? But like, I'll start with something basic. Pink is for girls, blue is for boys, and makeup's for girls. Gymming is for boys. Just these are really uh, these are like stuff that we've grown up with, and I feel like it's come to a point where like it really takes a toll on me. One thing which I've personally felt is also that I love socks. I'm like a sock enthusiast by heart. So growing up, I used to hear these random people being like, "Ladke do not wear such bright colors. It makes them look odd." And for a very long time, I used to feel like maybe I shouldn't. So I would just keep buying them and putting them in my cupboard and being like, "One fine day, I'll wear these." Till recently, not recently, like a few years back, I started realizing that I don't need to fit in, or I don't need to prove these people why I wear it, or just because I don't fit in with their standards of what's right and what's wrong. So yeah, that's my personal experience of what I feel is like um, what's going on.
Right, right. Arisha, what about you?
I think you kind of really start to feel or understand gender stereotypes when you don't really fit in, or when you're like trying to break one of those stereotypes, and it's not even intentional at times, like just something you are, like Hamza said, like sorry, Ali said about him and his socks, right? Like so similarly, like for me, it's always I mean, more in middle school, I started speaking up a lot about a lot of things which I felt were things that should be spoken up about. But like in school, it would be like, why is she speaking up so much? Or like I would be like the like the center of jokes quite often with like batchmates or whatever, because it wasn't really a woman's place to talk so much or like speak up against people who were actually doing things. Whereas it was always fine if the boys in my class were doing that. So that's one stereotype which I think kind of affected my life.
I definitely think that's like a stereotype that's prevalent in our society that women should be quiet and passive. There's a question by Fezu too. Do you feel yourself pushed to make certain choices due to gender stereotyping, or did so in the past before you realized how you're kind of subservient
Ah,
to it?
100%. I think everyone, well, most of us could agree that we made a lot of choices based on what others think is right or what fits our society. And yeah, I've done quite a few things which I may not want to name right now, but like I've done quite a few things which I'd be like I just did it um, for the acceptance of people, and because there was a certain stereotype associated with that particular act. But yeah, I I I think there are a lot of things that I could go on about.
Right.
Mhm.
Arisha, what about you?
Um, I'd say that a lot of times there is a lot of pressure, but I kind of try to make my decisions independently of that pressure. Obviously, it hasn't always been like that, but now that I've grown up more, I try to do that as much as I can. Um, for example, I remember when I wanted to start rowing, a lot of people told me, "Oh, you shouldn't be rowing because you're gonna become really muscly and your complexion's gonna get really dark." And I was like, "Okay, but my brother, he's been rowing since 6 years, and none of you have bat an eye about that." But so I mean, I think it's always a balance between how much you can fight against it and how much people can really have a say in your life. At some point, I think it's also impossible to like completely, I mean, throw them away, because you are a part of society and you kind of have to function according to that. So you don't always have like 100% choice because there are things restraining you. But I try to rebel against it as much as I can.
Right. I personally feel like gender stereotypes when it comes to males and females, I feel like gender stereotypes when it comes to males can be more about conformity, where males have to conform. And when it comes to females, it's the same thing. But I also think when it comes to females, they can be more restrictive. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually some aspects of gender stereotyping. So I want to talk about how gender stereotyping connects with social issues as well as mental health. So what are some of the stereotypes that you've seen in society that actually have a social impact on society? And if we like maybe work on it, can have a more positive impact on society.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So
Okay,
I
let me
just asked my
go for it.
sorry. So I asked some of my friends for feedback before joining this, and one of them told me, so you know how women are always perceived as overreacting with a lot of things. So sometimes when they go to doctors really don't pay attention because they think that they're just overreacting, and a lot of times they don't get the proper like treatment for it because it's like thought it's just over exaggeration. And yeah, I think even with for example, with a lot of diseases, like for example PCOS, like it's the research around it is focused on how it affects women's ability to conceive rather than the fact that they are human and they should be able to like have a better life. So I think that
Right,
stereotype of like mother or caregiver is like more important than the actual person's life, which is kind of really questionable.
right. Hamza, do you want to, Ali, sorry, do you maybe want to like add on to that?
Um, I think I agree with her that a lot of girls are but to be honest, I feel like it's the same with a few with guys as well. That I feel like a lot of, if a guy is too expressive, that's termed as being a drama queen, even though it's
Mm-hmm.
okay for a guy to be expressive as well, even if it means crying or speaking about how, you know, a certain thing affects that person, and then you're, you know, asked to be like, man up, don't cry, don't do this, you're not supposed to be, so, you know, you aren't supposed to have so many emotions. I feel like it eventually starts to make you very cold from the inside, and it almost makes you like one day you break really badly. And to prevent stuff like that from happening, we should go on with this, and, you know, ask more people to speak up about what's bothering them, why are they crying, and ask our friends to cry if they feel that they want to cry and be expressive. And, you know, that's just their way of communicating. We should definitely ask them to do that. And I feel like with girls it's even more, because then again, people use that period card. Oh, she's probably on her periods, which is why she's being a drama queen and stuff like that, which is really wrong. I mean, if you, me being a medical student, I studied it, so I know how it goes about and how horrible it can be. So, you know, for people to be so insensitive and just term it by being like, oh, she's on her periods, or, you know, just ignore her, this is just a phase, she'll get over it, is really wrong. So yeah, that's what I
Right.
feel.
Right. I really want to touch back on that men don't cry stereotype that you touched, because I think it has a lot of social consequences, and it's not just limited to crying. I feel like we teach males in society to like almost suppress their emotions, and because of that we see, as we grow up, as a matter of fact, I think we see it with a lot of our dads. They're not the best at communicating, you know, and a lot of people might not have the healthiest relationship with male members in their family. So I think it really impedes communication and is counterproductive. Maybe, like, you know, can you guys, a little, like Arisha at least, can you express a little bit more on the men don't cry stereotype and how men have to be masculine at all times from the female
Um,
perspective?
yeah, I think a lot of times it also translates into aggression. Like when someone isn't allowed to express their emotions, it kind of just builds inside, and until one day, like Ali said, it just explodes. But people have different way of it exploding. Like sometimes it could just like have really bad mental health, cause mental health issues where people just don't know how to express them anymore. But on the other hand, it could also just lead to like physical violence or punching into walls, or something that's really common with men who just aren't allowed to. They don't have any other avenue to really let it out. So um
Right. I also
And
think it's like, yeah, go for it.
no, I also want to add, K, I feel like, and when these men that are asked to suppress their feelings all these years, when they get into relationships with their significant others and they find that
mhm,
space where they can communicate, it becomes so toxic, which it shouldn't, because expressing yourself is not supposed to be something toxic, but because that's their only outlet, that, like Arisha said, K, you know, they have never had that outlet before. And when they have it, all of a sudden, they just want to, like, you know, just dump as much as they can. And being the person at the receiving end, it gets really, you know, overwhelming, because let's be real, we're all dealing with stuff. So yeah, I feel like it's like this cycle that keeps affecting one person after the other and the other, and then with undealt with traumas, and then it just keeps going on. There's no end to this if we don't stop with this men don't cry and stuff like that.
And I feel like the men don't cry stereotype also connects to, you know, this general gender role of men being very authoritative in households, and, you know, the man of the house stereotype, that men tend to have very controlling, you know, attributes to them. And this can translate to things like domestic abuse in households when people don't know how to process their anger or stress. You know, we see that a lot. In fact, this question over here, do you feel that lockdown or quarantine has amplified toxic gender stereotypes versus dialogue and teaching opportunities? I definitely think I've seen a stat where it says that quarantine actually increased domestic abuse in households, because, you know,
Yeah, there's
people are
actually a
staying.
helpline as well.
Right.
yeah.
So I feel like, you know, you see how gender stereotypes impede you in everyday life. Um, okay, so it says toxic gender stereotypes versus creating dialogue and teaching opportunities. Do you all want to answer this question? Maybe add on to it?
I feel like it's done both. I wouldn't say just domestic abuse, because I mean, like, we're here talking about it, right? So I'm sure there are more people talking about it, and I mean, if there's a help, and I know for a fact that the helpline recently started, so there's definitely been conversation about how, like, these things should be taught, and if not taught, they should be addressed, that this is not right to abuse someone in any way. So I feel like there's a mixture of both. Maybe domestic violence is still at a higher end because of, like, the lack of education and the lack of acceptance that we have in our society, but at the same time I feel like there's definitely teaching opportunities that have started coming up.
Right. I definitely
Um,
think so. Yeah.
yeah, I think I agree with Ali, but also like a lot of what I've heard from a lot of women is that it's just like the lockdown situation is getting so much more toxic because they're constantly with their like male one with their male family members, and two because like all of the things are just so much more amplified, like you like the household chores or just like constant like responsibility, whereas like when you constantly see like all the men in your house chilling, but you're like supposed to like do the dishes, wash everything, blah blah, and then go and do all your work. And I think also for like a lot of women who are working from home, like it's just completely like imbalanced the situation when they have to like manage their kids, they have to manage their husbands, and well, while like a lot of men are just like like this is what I've read as well, like like girls just complaining about how their families aren't just aren't taking the work seriously anymore. When they say we have a meeting, please don't like call us if you want
Right.
tea. So I think those are also some things to think about or
Right.
reflect on.
Before we address the question we got, I just wanted to throw a stat out. I feel like we probably know it. The fact that when you don't deal with, like, this whole going back to the men don't cry stereotype, when you don't deal with things like that, we know that, men are 10 times likelier to, commit suicide and, go through with it than women are, So I feel like, again, creating a safe space for boys from a young age and like creating spaces for communication is very important. Okay, so a question we got are, how are these avenues different from women? Why aren't they going around punching walls?
I think it's because from a very young age, like they're taught that they're supposed to deal with their emotions or like be there for other people when they're being when they're showing emotion. Like I mean, they're constantly taught. They're in the process of training to be a mother since they're born. I think so. And
With
also
those
like
tea
it's
sets that they have.
a lot of things, and even the game, even with the games you see that like kids play, like it's always like those gender roles are always so defined, and also it's much more acceptable for women to be expressive or um, to cry or to show emotion. I think so they have like somewhat healthier ways of expressing it. Even female friendships, like when I know like that I can talk to my female friends about a lot of things, whereas when I talk to a lot of my guy friends, they're like, oh, we just go and play video games with our friends. We don't talk about a lot of things because that's not what boys do, which is kind of
Right.
really baffling for me. So I think
Right.
I think
And not just
Go
yeah,
for
no,
go
no,
it.
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, no, I wasn't saying something. I was just acknowledging a point. Go for it.
Okay. Okay, no, I was just saying, okay, and so I'm not naming names, but like recently I had a conversation about something really emotional with someone, something really emotional happened in someone's life, and then we had that conversation, and I felt so weird that after the end of that conversation, that guy was like, "It's so weird how I've never had conversations like this before.
Yeah.
I feel like you're my only outlet, and that's not supposed to be right. Like that's so weird to hear. I feel this is more weird to hear than what he said, like like, and she's completely right, Arisha, that I feel the same way. It's much more easier to talk to girls, not like boys are not hearing you out, but like it's much more easier to get
Right.
um that
Yeah.
I wouldn't say sympathy, but that feeling of like
Understanding.
yeah, exactly, it feels very different, and that has to do with the fact that that's just how we've been grown up, that the mother always has to be like the caretaker, and the dad can just go out and just do whatever the hell he wants to, or whatever that means.
Even
Right.
from a young age, like girls are taught like they should be the ones giving up things for their brothers. Like if there's like three pizzas at the table, like the brother is gonna get two while the girl's gonna get one, you know. So they're always taught to compromise. And even if we're talking about violence, like it's always so much sanctioned, so much more if it's a girl showing violence. Like even teachers in schools or mothers, like if a girl is going around like drawing on walls, I think she'd be punished a lot more than a like boy doing that, because it would be like, oh, it's fine, he's just a boy. He's obviously, boys are much more naughtier than girls, blah blah. So I think just from a very young age we're taught to like not show like behavior which is not really acceptable. And um so yeah, that was
Yeah,
just the
I
answer.
And
go for it.
no, I just wanted to add, and even at shadis, I don't know about abroad, but like over here, if you're in a wedding, it's always the guy's side that's open first when it comes to food.
Right.
Most of the weddings here, after, and I don't understand this concept, and I keep questioning this, even with just generally asking people, why is that the men deserve food first? Is there like, are they? What is it that we create this thing that they deserve food first? Because that's how it sounds like. If they're being served first, it seems like they're more deserving of it
Yeah.
than the women in that particular time, that the women can wait. And even with the other thing that she said, I completely forgot what you said. Okay, so I just lost my trail of
Okay,
thought,
we'll
but
come
it's
back
okay.
to it. We'll come back to it. I think this question is actually a very good question and connects to what we're talking about. How does pop culture media perpetuate these gender stereotypes? Can we do something about this? Okay, so especially in terms of females, and you talked about how females are, pushed to be more quiet, passive, compromising, sacrifice, and there's whole image of purity about females. There's like two extreme spectrums to the spectrum. Either she's the purest thing around, or she's a complete deviant sex symbol, right? There's only those two, and now we see more intersectionality in that. But for the last probably 50, or like ever since media's existed, we
Mhm.
haven't seen it. So how have you guys seen it in media, and how do you wish it would change?
Well,
um
I know it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to unpack. Or maybe like something you could just think back to where you were like, wow, that's
I
really
feel like
weird.
I'd say that with Ariana Grande. I feel like initially she was very like this girly girl, and even Taylor Swift, and now they've come back to like, real issues with stuff like. I feel like maybe this is just my opinion. Don't attack me for it. I just feel like that these women, that they've had it in them for so long, that then now that they've started talk about real issues, like in all of their songs, you see Selena, you see Ariana, you see Taylor, their music transition has been so crazy. Like I look at these women and I'm like, man, this is change. And it's like, initially there was less acceptance to it, to now where there's so much acceptance, where they feel like, they can talk about whatever the hell they want to, breakups, whatever that it's inside of them, not what, like you said, girls are supposed to be pure, pink, butterflies, rainbow, stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like it's definitely changed a lot over the years.
I think a lot of our Pakistani dramas kind of just like really perpetuate that. Like there's that wife, and then there's this other person who's just like trying to get the guy's attention, and um, like neither of them can be like somewhere in the middle, or like it can never be the guy's fault. Like it's always like this Sati Savitri and then the other Savitri
Right.
with like
The homewrecker.
uh, yes. uh, Also, wait, I forgot what the question was, because do you, it was
The
something
question
about,
was,
oh,
do you want
yeah,
me to
yeah, I
read it out?
remember now. No, 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 I remember. It was also, how does the media perpetuate it? It's like, our dramas also kind of show how if you just keep waiting and trying to fix the person, they're going to change eventually, and you should just wait and pray and pray. And it's like, no, like, I don't know if you guys have watched the movie Thappar that came out recently. Did you get a
Yeah,
chance? It
Um,
was so
brilliant
good because
movie.
it was like, the first time you see like any kind of abuse, it's okay to walk
Abused.
away at that time. Like you don't have to keep waiting for more opportunities or chances, or you don't have to give them
Red
more
flags to
chances.
keep appearing.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
I also feel like too, like I haven't seen Thappad, but I know that infamous line from The Bung, Thappad se dar nahi lagta, sahib je pyar se lagta hai, right? And I feel like violence is almost very romanticized in Pakistani media,
Yeah.
especially, and glorified. Like, if he's fighting for you, like he loves you even more. Whereas that's just not the case. Um, Okay, the biggest contributor, in my opinion, has to be the whole damsel in distress trope. I feel like, yeah, that plays a very big part too, how we've seen throughout media that women are always dependent on men. In fact, whereas I feel like throughout life, not to like,
It's the other way
it-
around.
yeah, it's the other way around. Men are pretty dependent on women. Why men aren't supposed to be sad. No, be sad. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. That's what we're trying to say over here. Okay, so let's move on before we answer this other question in terms of conditioning. This wala question. I want to move on the economical side of this because I feel like it's easier for people to understand and grasp the idea when we talk about the actual economic impact of gender stereotyping. We
Mhm.
lost Ali. Ali is back. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So some of the economic impacts I've personally seen um, in with gender stereotyping is in terms of education, because I feel like education is very interlinked with the success of a country. So how do you think gender stereotypes affect education, especially in Pakistan?
I
If
have something on it.
Go for
yeah,
it.
I just feel like, so I've heard a lot of my professors say that too, that they have this assumption where girls are like they study more, so they're smarter, and I've heard this one line which honestly kind of takes me off sometime, even when I'm really working hard towards something, is that लड़के तो निकम्मे होते हैं मतलब तुम लोग कहाँ करोगे ये सब ड्राइंग्स और समथिंग लाइक दैट या तुम लोग कहाँ पढ़ोगे स्ट्रेस के लिए तुम लोग चीट करके पास हो जाओगे एंड देन इट स्टेज इफ यू इवन इफ यू गेट अ गुड ग्रेड दे अज्यूम कि you cheated or just because you're a guy you have to have cheated and if there's a girl she has had to have studied each and every page and she's the smartest which is bad for both they have these unrealistic
Right,
expectations from girls as well that it's fine if Arisha
yeah,
is not the smartest girl and it's fine if Ali's not the dumbest kid either way you know what I'm saying.
right.
yeah.
And I also feel like in terms of like just education system, I also feel like women have less access to education. At least we say, because we sit in more privileged like place. We've all been educated, mashallah. But we've seen that women tend to send their like female children to school up until primary school, but females don't have that much secondary education or higher education. We don't see them in those spectrums. We see males on those spectrums because of that breadwinner provider stereotype and how it's going to help them. So maybe elaborate on that a little too, because I think we see that in Pakistan a lot.
Okay, I
um,
feel like that a lot of people just feel that women are just supposed to pop babies. So they have this assumption. I'm not speaking, I'm just
Right, we
giving like a
understand,
general
Ali.
no, no,
We
that's
understand.
yeah,
We understand this is not your
that
opinion.
these they just assume that they're just gonna give babies and they don't want a future, they don't want to work, they don't want to go out and do something for themselves. So then and also I feel like another perspective that I've heard from people is that they feel that in in really Islamic families that they have this assumption where if the woman studies too much, well, she'll be at a higher position than the guy. So they feel like
yeah,
they just
Right.
to fill their
yeah,
ego in. They feel like the girl has to not study that much, so we can always be like, you haven't studied, you don't know what's right, which is
yeah,
bullshit. That's not true at
Right.
all.
I
yeah.
completely agree with what you said, but I just want to point out, let's not mix up religion and culture over here. Yeah. Okay. Let's
Yeah.
let's
I
let's
think
go on,
even
Arisha.
um sorry, blanked out for a second. No, I was saying that even in like even when we're like when a lot of families are looking for rishtas, they want the most educated girl, but then she's not allowed to work, which is even and like the guy can be like I don't know, just like not even have a degree, and that's fine. And he is still supposed to have a higher paying job. Like she's like not even because of like real sacrificial reasons does she have to like not get a job. Like it's only supposed to be because it's going to hurt the man's ego if she does go out and work and gets a better paid job. And yeah, also in in a lot of institutions are trying to be more gender exclusive, and they want thing like they for example they're trying to promote women to come into higher jobs, but I think this the environment at home doesn't really allow them to. Like for example, I read about a lumps professor who's like we're really trying to get women to come into higher jobs, but they're just not applying. What's the
Right.
issue here? And it's like well, maybe you need to start changing the culture around it too. Like a lot of women just can't do it because they have so many things holding them back, whereas a man can just go ahead and like grab any opportunity that comes his way. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think there needs to be
Yeah.
like a reconstruction to the family dynamic where we,
Hmm.
encourage the men to contribute to, domestic and household activities as well, so women
Hmm.
can prioritize their jobs. Um, and wait, willingness to consume media that breaks stereotypes. Okay, we can address this question, but I just want to go back to Ali's point about how he said that लड़के तो निकम्मे होते हैं लेकिन लड़कियां पढ़ती हैं. I also feel like there's definitely a restriction when it comes to fields of education. Like we see that people believe that women are more likely and inclined to choose like liberal arts or humanities subjects, whereas men are more systematic in the way they think. So they work more in STEM fields and more hard labor jobs. And I've seen my friends encounter problems with this, and issues like this happen in developed countries as well. We see biases and discrimination when it comes to women in STEM or men in places of art or humanities. So since Ali, you do you best of both worlds, you're a med student but you also do photography on the side, and Arisha, you do, as someone who is going on in a somewhat unconventional, profession for women in our society, in Pakistani society. So what do you guys think?
Ali, do you want to take that?
But unconventional, I didn't mean to offend you. I just mean like I meant like
No,
less
no, no.
traditional. You know what I mean, right? I saw
Yeah,
your
yeah, for
eyebrows raised. I was
sure.
like,
No, 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 not at all. It was more like an agreement thing. Like people don't understand what I'm really like when they ask me what are you really studying, and I'm like, I don't know how to explain it to you because it's not really that common. Like
right.
liberal arts itself is not really that common in Pakistan, and yeah, but I think a lot of times it's dismissed. Like when I tell my like family, like extended family, what I'm doing, they're just like, "Oh, acha social." Like they're just like, "Oh, okay,
Social
you're doing
science.
something arts related now. Okay, like it doesn't matter, whatever."
Right.
So, like I'm always asked like, "Oh, why aren't you?" Like I think it's actually sometimes it's you see a positive change as well where they're like, "Oh, why didn't you go into like I don't know, why didn't you become a doctor or why didn't you do a business degree or something?" So I think that's also kind of a positive change where people do want you to work, but they don't want you to be too like they don't want your entire identity to be about it. You still need to be the perfect housewife, but you should also be working. So
Right.
yeah.
Yes, Ali.
Uh, I just feel like that I don't know why, but I feel like these professors in particular, they've associated bio with like this girly subject. So when I tell someone I'm doing medicine, they assume I'm doing it because I've been forced, and then I have to validate it by telling them that I'm doing medicine because I like bio. And then if I tell them that I'm doing photography, so they assume that are you sure you want to do this? Like, do you want to keep? Are you just doing this because you're trying to prove something, or are you doing this because you want to? I'm like, who am I gonna prove this to? But then I
Wow.
understand that they have these unrealistic expectations from men where they feel like photography might not provide a very substantial avenue every month, so they feel like they have to enforce it. No, you cannot do photography, Ali. It can always be a hobby. It
Hmm.
cannot be a permanent
Your main
thing,
thing.
which I don't think it should be this way. But then again, this is just something that I feel happens.
Right.
That's
No,
my
I
take.
definitely. No, I definitely think you're right. It's very restrictive when it comes to males and females. Another thing somebody asked, I think the question's gone now, but it said, consider how capitalist institutions profit off women's needs to fit a cookie cutter stereotype, pink tax, hygiene products. I was actually reading a study on how, marketing strategies work, since I am an advertisement major. And the fact marketing works in a way where actually it segmenting people into male and female when targeting, their demographic actually helps them work better. So you'll see in a lot of places, like there was this Lego case study, how Lego used to, like, in their advertisements, just show males and females playing together with the same set of Legos. However, they have this new Lego Friends collection, which is targeted towards girls. And through that, they raised their annual revenue by 25% just by targeting females and increasing, the normal Lego house price just by making it pink and not blue and red. So, matlab, there's a lot of things like that. Have you guys seen things like that when you're buying things, especially Arisha, when you go out and buy things? Do you see the same products
Right.
for like higher prices, or,
I just end up buying nail razors every time because I'm like, I'm not paying extra for this.
right?
Um, hmm.
And
Let me think about this.
I feel like a lot of males don't even know about the pink tax. The fact that on average 40% of the same female products, except it just says for her or
Yeah.
she or female, and is colored pink, is the same ingredients, is just 40%
Yeah.
more of the price, because we know that females, because we've been conditioned to believe, that we need to take care of our bodies. And obviously, I feel like personal hygiene is like for everyone, but we more geared towards to this like ideal image of flawlessness and purity. So because of that, we have a higher upkeep, and I feel like people, like, benefit and exploit that, really.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I feel like gender stereotypes isn't just about, I feel like a big conversation that comes up when it's on gender stereotypes is like, oh, it's all these feminazis trying to dismantle the patriarchy, whereas it's really not. It's like these big capitalistic systems that are taking advantage of us all, and it's affecting you all, and especially for the parents who are here, it affects, especially if you have daughters, and sons equally, it affects their chances in society, where what their career is going to be, how they're going to grow up, their personal development. So I feel like we all need to like play a really big part in dismantling gender stereotypes and gender
And
norms
like
that are harmful.
recognizing them as well. Like recognize when you're saying something just because it's a stereotype or because it's really needed. Like the next time you're telling your son that he shouldn't cry, like is it really because he shouldn't cry or because you've been made to think that way your entire life?
Right. So, do you want to say something? I feel like this was a very female dominated conversation. Do you want to add
No,
on?
no, I love it. I just wanted to say you're right. I didn't know about this 40% thing. Like it just 40% higher. I never realized it, even though I use so many skincare products. I love skincare. But I never
Right.
really realized it because there's practically no men's skincare
Male
products if you look at
product.
that as well. There's not at
Right.
all. And when brands like but now I feel like the brand's dynamics have changed. They feel like, okay, if we add skincare for all, it's gonna attract more people because that way you're trying to break something. But then again, I feel like they're just not agreeing to it, because if you look at the skin, and now I'm gonna talk in medical terms, but when we look at the skin and the skin of a female and a man, there's a very slight um, difference. There's not much to it. But then again, there's still brands that are making a pink, a blue, a she, he, stuff like that, which makes no bloody sense because it isn't supposed to be this way. But
Right.
yeah, I completely support this.
No, I feel like also Shad's a really important point, how you said that people are moving towards more like inclusive like branding and marketing. And I think that just shows the social change and impact that our generation and youth has through, like, the digital age, that we can push brands to change their marketing. And business is all about supply and demand, right? So if you demand that, they're obviously going to have to supply that. And then going off of that, I also think when we talked about education, and since we're on the topic of economics, I feel like these norms hold back our economic growth, our social progress, And what country doesn't want that? If you gave, especially for women, if you gave them the freedom to do what they want, and if we made our fields more inclusive, I will address this question in a bit. If we made our fields more inclusive, like, we would have double the working, that would benefit us all. So I don't understand why governments don't work on inclusivity when it's only going to benefit us. The question is, for middle class families, and from personal experience, I agree to how you said it's kind of given कि लड़कियां तो पढ़ती ही हैं, लड़के तो मतलब जो इंसान है नहीं पढ़ेंगे. Okay, they agree with you, Ali. Uh, okay, let's take another question. I saw another question. It's related to media. Willingness to consume media that breaks stereotypes is also a problem. Thappar flopped and Kabir Singh was a hit. Do you think this issue can be solved?
I think the issue is gonna. I think a lot of what people want to consume is based on how they think. So, like, if someone wants to consume more media that has more female representation, or has more like intersectional representation, they're going to go towards that. So I think it's more about how you need to start changing how you think before it's like it can't just be a solely you can't just solely focus on media for that, right? Like, I think it's kind of a circular process as well. Like, the media kind of influences how we think, but how we think is also also influences what we consume. Um, I think it's going to take a lot of time. Like, people mostly want to consume things that are just like lighthearted and funny. So you can't always expect them to like consume things that have like a deeper meaning or are about social issues. So I think there can be a balance towards it. Like, Thappar also received a lot of appreciation and like a lot of appreciation. So I think over the years it can continue growing. Like, we see a shift in how people think already. Like, if I see it from 10 years ago, I think a lot more people think differently now. Even though when you view it in terms of like percentages in the entire population, it's still pretty insignificant. But I mean, we can just all we can do is hope.
Right, right. I
True.
completely agree. Ali, how would you respond to this?
I feel like, yeah, I kind of agree. I have to agree with Risha that, there's definitely been, there has been progress, and it's not going to be something that will be accepted by the society immediately. But that doesn't mean that we should stop just because we didn't get a response that we would expect it to have. But eventually people will start understanding it. वही वाली बात के बच्चे को जब तक बचपन से नहीं सिखाओगे वो बड़े होके वो he's not going to apply those things. You have to start from rock bottom, even if the kid just doesn't listen to you and he keeps refusing to do an XYZ thing. That's literally how we have to treat this situation. Like, these people know nothing, and we slowly have to keep telling them, bringing the same thing over and over again till people start to realize that. And I feel like right now a lot of people attack. Why? Because they haven't had the time to think. This is all still very new to them, and still something which they're not ready to just absorb in. But when they start seeing a lot of people talking about it, eventually, maybe not 100, maybe not 50, maybe 25 people try to understand, and those 25 people will eventually, take our role and roles of the movie to expand the conversation even more to people which are not trying to, just to expand the different perspectives of everyone, speaking in terms of everyone's perspective, not just ourselves or what the movie has to show. So yeah.
I'd
Right,
just like to
definitely.
add, like, we even see it. For example, Aurat Mart started in 2018. In the first year, it had quite a big audience, but it wasn't as big. And in just 2 years, I think those numbers have already doubled. And even without that, we have a lot of people who are showing support, even if they're not physically there, who are showing support from all over the world, or even women who can't, even women who can't physically show up because of their families or whatever. We have a lot of more people having conversations, and even if they don't outright support it, we just see a lot more conversation and opinions shifting from one to the other. So I think things like Aurat March also display how much misogyny is present in the society,
Right.
which makes a lot of people change their
True.
opinions oh, we've been attacking feminism, but did we really notice all this misogyny before? Like, it kind of amplifies it, which makes people think more. So I think that's also, I think there is hope for change.
I definitely think so. And I also think the Orange March brings out a lot of internalized misogyny within women themselves, you know? Um,
Yeah.
3 points, because we're moving towards the end of the show. 3 points that I really, really wanted to point out is first, Ali talked about how, why do I keep on calling you Hamza? First of all, Ali talked about how we need to start educating kids like ever like from a young age. I definitely think that's important, but I also think impeding and intervening in your households, that we have the education, because I don't feel like we thought like this maybe like 7 years ago or 5 years ago, when we weren't so aware of gender roles. So definitely intervene in your households as well. When you see something, call people out, call yourself
Yeah.
out when you see yourself somehow playing into the system. Second point I wanted to make, how does gender stereotyping affect the youth? I feel like a lot of what we talked about is like, how gender stereotyping affected the youth. But second point, this is backtracking a little bit, but I really wanted to make this point when you talked about, medical fields and women's needs dismissed, or women's, concerns dismissed in the medical field. We see this a lot with autism. Okay, a lot of research on autism is based on male autism, and we don't have enough research on female autism, so it goes unlooked for like so many years. Same we see with disproportionately when it comes to when women report their pregnancies, and that within that, in America, there's a disproportionality when it comes to race. Black women are less believed when they talk about their pregnancies. Third point that I wanted to make, that I am somewhat forgetting, I will probably make once you guys say your last ments. What do you want to leave off, like saying your last words, something positive, something impactful?
Follow Ali Hamzu for amazing content on all these controversial topics.
I think Risha's stuck. Risha, yeah, definitely follow Ali's page. It's very, very cool. It's very thought-provoking. Arisha is stuck. Okay, I think Arisha is going to join us back. Arisha.
Isha. Ta-da. Okay.
Arisha. I
I thought
forgot
she was
what I
gonna
wanted to
come
talk
back.
about. I wanted to say something so important, and then I completely blanked. There's so much going on right now in my head.
This is God giving you a chance to think about it while
Yeah, I
Arisha's
was like,
disappeared.
what? No, but I definitely just feel like I personally, Allah ka shukr, like, I have very supportive parents, but not everyone. Yeah, we just answered this question. I have very supportive parents, but not everyone has that. Some of the best chefs in the world are male, a career so often associated with women. Yeah, and women aren't credited.
Ooh, that is so true. That is so true.
Yeah, and women aren't credited in these fields, I
Good
feel
job,
like.
Tezu Tube. I don't know who you are, but good
As if
job
you've
for
asked me all the
keeping.
thought-provoking questions.
Yeah. But I
Um,
also want to add, K, you know, we it literally starts from home. You need to fix yourself before you point stuff out to other people. Charity begins
right,
from home. So start from your home, have a conversation with your siblings, with your parents as well. I know having a conversation with our parents about stuff which they're not used to is very hard, and I don't expect them for you to lash out on them, but slowly get into the habit of it. Eventually, who knows? I mean,
right,
anything can happen.
right.
Oh, you're
Arisha's
back.
back. Hey, Arisha, you
Hello,
hear us?
sorry, I don't know.
You're good, you're good. We see you,
Yeah,
we hear you.
I don't know what happened. Some internet issues or something.
As long as you're back. Ali said his piece. You want to say your piece? Promote your work?
I
Arisha.
think I think I still can't hear you guys properly.
Okay, do you want to maybe type in what you want to say in your private chat, and then I can narrate it to the people? Or just say it, we hear you, we hear you. Just say your piece. It's fine if you don't hear us. 1 second, we're having technical difficulties.
I think she's typing something. I hear like something typing.
That was me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to make the point. I've literally forgotten my point and I can't come back to it. I don't know why. But I just want to finish this by saying, before Arisha jumps in. Okay, Arisha has jumped out.
Out.
I just want to finish this by saying that dismantling these systems is up to us, and it might seem very radical or something that's too much that we're asking for, but it
Impossible.
really isn't. Yeah. And gender norms and gender roles are something that are, created and constructed by society, and as well as gender itself is a social construct. So, matlab, it's literally up to us to, dismantle it and work at it. And all you're going to do through it is, benefit yourself. Um, Earlier, you
Yeah.
guys talked about men and their aggression associated with their inability to express emotions. A lot of this contributes to this sort of anger privilege men have, where anger is considered. Yeah, I agree with that. I completely agree with that. There's a lot of privilege and balance, disbalance and stereotypes. I definitely think there's a disproportional negative effect on women when it comes to stereotypes, but there definitely is for men as well. But yeah, I want to end this by saying that I don't know where Arisha is, but I'm sure Arisha would say the same thing.
Yeah.
Dismantle negative gender stereotypes. Keep
Yep.
working on it. Keep educating yourself. It can get uncomfortable to learn new things and to implement them in your life, but when it take like an egalitarian approach to it, it's for the benefit of the greater good and for all the people. um but yeah, let's take this last question. A valid emotion for them as opposed to, oh, it's by Kinza Farm. What do you guys think about this? Kinza, we will be uploaded on YouTube, so you can definitely go back to that portion we talked about aggression in males. So yeah, but Ali, you want to end the show? You want to shout out your page again?
Shout out to I just love how I get this privilege like two times now, but I'll say it again. It's okay. You guys have to follow ALY Hamzu. It's even at I see it over there. And also
Ali started lagging too. Pakistan internet is going down.
dude, you initiative and we need to give in. Yeah, I'm back.
Arisha's back too, it looks like.
Wow, what is going on? But yeah, we should definitely give a shout out to Ensiyah for doing this, for having people, and hopefully this goes ahead to making a bigger move than it already has. Good job, you and producers.
Salman uncle in the back.
Yep. Shout out to
But,
Salman Uncle.
but yeah, I don't know if Arisha's ever going to show up, but Arisha, was so nice to have you. You really contributed really well to the dialogue. You too, Ali, thank you for really giving us the Arisha, can we hear you? Arisha. Oh no. I feel like I'm on like a news broadcast. Arisha, can I hear you?
Hi guys, I think I'm finally proper.
We can hear you, Arisha.
Can you
Any
hear
last
me?
words? Leaving parting
Amazing.
words.
Sorry, that took so.
You're
We
good.
doing what?
Any parting words? Any last words? Wait.
Hello.
Any parting words? Look at your private chat, Arisha.
Oh,
Any parting words.
I hope you guys learned something from this, and thank you for sending in your comments and the questions. Sorry about. I'm just like a little. My headspace is like a little from all the internet
A
connection
little
stuff.
hectic. Yeah, you're good. You're good. You're doing great. I don't think I can still hear us. But yeah, that was episode 2 of Social Chai. I hope you all learned something. Thank you for contributing to the dialogue. Thank you for, making us think about a lot of things too through your comments, and keep creating dialogues like this on your personal platforms, whether it's like your private Instagram or within small groups of friends. Keep improving yourselves, and let's look at a brighter future and hopefully a brighter Pakistan. But yeah,
Inshallah.
inshallah. But that's it from us. This was Ensiyah, Ali, and Arisha, who is gone now. Allah Hafiz.